Okay. All right. No probs. Um, so, wow, it's been quite a week since since we last met. Did it Zero X Defensor, hello, Bonapublica, Ikagi, Mike, Nix. Uh, yeah. So I definitely think we can have. I'd like to have a lot in the chat, but I'll probably moderate by voice just for in the interest of time and speed. This week, we have accessibility in scope, and thank you for the reports. I kind of think that the news we've had about the amendments and the work assignment and the gate call coming up on Friday feels a bit more pressing. And maybe in some way, we can cover things that you've raised in your weekly reports. The thing about the accessibility scope, of course, is that a lot of it is pertaining to the launch project, and we don't have a lot of transparency about that, and that's been we don't have a lot of transparency about many things. But we've been explicitly advised, and we sort of really understand how it relates to the launch project. Um, but maybe just before we kick off, where are you all at? I mean, we had the very sad news of losing one of our delegates, Navigator, and there was another delegate that's not following refi that was also impacted. So maybe I'd just like to maybe start out asking the delegates who are here your reaction to that news, and any just sort of high level thoughts you have about the new work assignment, your role as ADs, anything just sort of to kick off, and then I can maybe direct the conversation from there. They find a what do you mean, Ikagi, that they find a better job? I mean, has everyone seen let me first ask a couple questions. Um, for the ADs, we put a link. Did we link to this in our meeting announcement? I'm not sure, but overnight, at least overnight, or maybe it was yesterday, I'm not sure when, but in the last 24 hours, um, 2 aligned delegates have stepped down or been removed because their OPSEC was compromised. So there was a long post on the forum by Vote Wizard. Thank you. Thank you so much. So that's what I'm referring to. Apologies if I just sort of assumed that that would jump out at everybody. Um, so yeah, so we're talking about operational security. Okay, Bona Publica's typing. Not time to dissect it. I mean, while you all are typing, I'll just say, it's interesting kind of game theory right now, right? In the incentives. Um, and there's a lot of ways you can get rugged in this line of work. Um, but I'm just wondering that does that, what happened really, yeah, how does that affect your calculus of your contributions? Cloaky's saying, I found it unexpected to witness the derecognition taking place, especially considering Runes mentioned during the Friday call that the facilitators were wisely refraining from derecognizing delegates for operational security reasons just yet. Yes, the way that I, kind of read the difference there from, for everyone, I'm not sure if everyone, some of the folks here, I don't think have been on the weekly calls on Friday. I have been attending. So what I understood Rune to say is that, using or connecting to a KYC centralized server, not server, but exchange, that is not per se a violation of OPSEC. And so to the extent that the facilitators themselves could detect interactions between an AD and centralized exchange, that alone was not going to be enforced against the ADs. Or I mean, I think the rules probably apply equally to facilitators, although I'm not sure. My sense of what happened with Navigator is that there was actually like a bounty hunter that came with some specific information that revealed their identity. We don't know what that information is. I mean, that wasn't revealed. And, if you read the post, it seems like the facilitators arranged for there to be a private one-on-one with this bounty hunter and the impacted delegate. And it was up to the delegates to like confirm that they had been compromised, which it seems like the delegates themselves have said yes and have resigned or stepped down, and that the facilitators don't even know what the evidence was. So yeah, so I think that's the difference. Anyone else? Defensor? True name? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So then one thing, and I've also, also just quickly taking everything in and, wanted to be as prepared as I could for the call. I think that, yeah, more feedback, sure. Cloaky's saying that linking to a KYC exchange does undermine operational security and that enforcement will be implemented in due course. Yep. He advised individuals who have connected to the KYC exchange to establish a new identity with yeah. So here's my question. You know, the KYC exchanges are some of the most, yeah, ironically, it's often used to be private, right? To enhance privacy from um to obscure movements with public wallets. So I'll be interested to know. And Zero X Defensor, I know you've had all of those terrific posts over this year about operational security and how to protect yourself as an anon. Um, yeah, okay. And Ikagi, you're saying how to connect a wallet to exchange. So, I mean, are we making a distinction between sending and receiving from a centralized exchange versus some kind of KYC service where you actually sign a transaction with your wallet connected to the KYC? Are those different things? Yeah, exactly. I mean, you don't, right, you don't so okay. So is there a concern about ADs using centralized exchanges? Right, okay, same thing. Right, okay. Well, yeah, I mean, to have this incident over the last 24 hours, there's obviously some, at least one person or organization that is hunting you guys, which is I don't know, I kind of feel very mixed about that. That's why okay, maybe this will be a good conversation for the governance scope next week when we've had a chance to digest it. And I also want to circle up Mike and Robin with you and talk a little bit about how we think these meetings ought to maybe change or adjust to the new governance focus. There's something in I believe it's in the amendment about AVCs focusing on maybe one of the delegates can help me out here, anyone who's had a chance to go through these amendments, which also I think just hit yesterday. But in my brief review, I feel like I took away the sense that, the AVCs are meant to support this next generation Atlas work, the Gates manual work, and that we should be hosting conversations that help the community and help the delegates and help alignment conservers and everyone understand this new reality that we're trying to build for Maker. I mean, it's the bedrock of literally everything, right? And it requires at this stage a tremendous effort to really just learn to, kind of train and learn. And we're not even yet at the point of actually building the new atlas, but my sense is, these exercises are kind of meant to get people up to speed. Um, yeah, Ikagi, in terms of the exchanges, right? We really just don't. We don't really know. We don't know if the points that were mentioned by the Vote Wizard in that comment were directly related to the evidence that was used. We don't. I think it would be helpful, and hopefully, I mean, I don't know. I don't know if we'll get more information about what was compromised and to what degree. Um, so I kind of see it one of two ways. The operational security obviously is a huge. I mean, it's core to the resiliency of MakerDAO, the new system, the end game state, being able to sustain itself in perpetuity resiliently. So I get it. I think it's it is part of this transition. Um, I just worry a little bit at this really early stage where there's a lot to learn. All of you all have put an enormous amount of effort to build up knowledge thus far, and it feels like a real blow. Obviously, for us, it's it's a blow to lose a prime delegate who's was very, very engaged, very active. Was among those of you who've been doing the reports, and how discouraging is that at a time when we need to attract people, or is the competition good, right? Or is that kind of pressure good? So those are just some of the things that I'm thinking about. And in terms of like the weekly reports, this is something that we started at the beginning of the second quarter, which was the third quarter. So the second quarter of doing the ABC meetings. I think we want to revisit. So we'll just pause on those for this week because there's a big deadline for Friday, and I'm sure all of you are really focused on learning and that work product and whatever feedback you're going to be getting on the forum. So no reports for next week. So for this Friday, Monday. Instead, definitely put all of your focus on the gate work product. um, and yeah, and then I guess let's just sort of reflect. And again, I want to speak with Mike and Robin, and we can talk about from an AVC member perspective, um, what might be useful. A part of having those reports was it was a great way for us to A, stay informed, but also B, it did give a sense of who's really engaged, who's knowledgeable, who's doing work, who's paying attention to what's going on in the community. Whereas in the new work products that are being required by Rune or requested, that's also serving that function. And there's some reputation system, right, that's being built or conceived that would give MKR holders and AVCs transparency that we were, maybe in an ad hoc way seeking with the reports. Just looking at the chat. Is there a process where an AD that steps down can return? Well, the only way they could return is to create a new identity and basically start from scratch, right? To sort of start with a clean slate. Nothing that identifies them with their at this stage we have no way of, there's like no ZK reputation system in place. I think the idea is in the future, if you had to recycle your identity or there was a breach or something like that, you could come in with a new identity that retained some of the proofs. I That's way above my pay grade as to like technically how that would work. I think even conceptually, those are things I guess we can talk about here. Um, right. Okay. So Cloaky, you've responded. Thank you. Well, so 0x defense or save what private key? Claim the rep later. I mean, how? In the case of, say Navigator. One thing that comes to mind is, to the extent that you've built knowledge, and then you kind of quote start over, you have the advantage of that knowledge. And so that would automatically give former participants some advantage in terms of, I guess trying to position for being eligible. And then, of course, there's the issue of the delegation. To the extent that, the person was compensated or the people. Um, right. Okay. And Cloaky makes a great point. Isn't there also negative reputation associated with initially having poor operational security in the first place? Yeah. Thank you. Maybe I'm being too big of a softie. It's rough and tumble world out there. Our enemies are, not taking any vacations, right? So, this is an adversarial environment. We want to be anti-fragile, right? And that means all of us. Well, all of the anons. Um, so yeah, it's like good for the bounty system is it's working right as intended. Oh, okay, I see 0x defense. So you're speaking about the wallet. The rep is supposed to be zero knowledge. Yeah, it's tricky. I think that point, Cloaky, that you made about, how does a reputation system take into account, both sides of the coin, the good and the bad. Okay. Uh, did anyone have chance or see the video that we linked to of Rune's presentation in Singapore? I just wonder if the ADs can let us know if you've watched that either today or you'd seen it before. Yeah, it's about 20 minutes. And I think for everyone who's working on for really for everyone in the community, but that it's worth checking it out in preparation for Friday. I think it gives such a different entry point to talking about the Atlas and the end game. That for me, being in Singapore for that talk, and this was a each sort of there was a sub-DAO Genesis event in Singapore, and then the video that we posted um, was from like the main stage of the conference, like a huge room with a couple of thousand people. And so they were just sort of slightly different takes, but the slides are great. The discussion of sub-DAOs and where we're trying to go. So I think that this is it's a great grounding as the work is getting really, really, really in the weeds. Um, so how's it feeling? A lot of you got some good shout outs for Work well done. A lot of refi ADs doing good work. Cloaky, Zero X Defensor, True Name. How are the rest of you feeling about the legibility of what is happening and what you're being asked to do? Welcome PBG, QGov, Sappho, Upmaker. Yeah, right. With regards to the assignments, the JSON writing, the transmutation, and coordinating for, yeah, all of it. Challenging. Is anyone who's following refi kind of having second thoughts about the job description that's evolved very rapidly? Awesome. Thank you. I mean, it's yeah, I know, Robin, you've been attending the calls, and Mike, you've been on a couple. I'm certainly planning to join all of them, um, and to some extent, I mean, I'll see, how much time I have to do some of the manual work. I mean, I wanna participate enough to be really informed. I think that the requirements, the necessity for AVCs to really get into it is limited, but at the same time, at this early stage, I think we have to have very, very little daylight between what is happening in governance, with you all, the ADs, and with the facilitators, um, everyone that's on this call, basically next year, part of ecosystem. So that includes you as well. Um, severe misalignment is definitely going to happen if AVCs at this stage are like not in the loop on a very substantive, on sort of like a primary basis. I think it will be very difficult for us all across the board to, try to rely on summaries. Um, some of this stuff is not very, you can't really, you can't grasp it very well from a summary. Um, Loki, I generally value the increased level of responsibility. Yeah. And taking part in the drafting gives us a much better understanding of how to navigate the atlas looking forward. Yes. So does anyone want to try and maybe summarize some key points about why we're doing this? So, you know, trying to use this forum today to fulfill our AVC, what it looks like for an AVC meeting to help the community get a handle on this. Like, what is the atlas? Like, what is actually happening with the text? These work assignments, you know, how would you characterize them, their purpose, and ultimately what it's leading to? We'll wait for you, Bona Publica, Loki. believe it would be beneficial for the ABC meetings to soon shift their focus towards section improvement, aiming to enhance specific aspects of the already transmuted sections within the atlas. So here's a tension that I think us in refi are going to have to work out. You know, I think we very much, and I hopefully will get some clarity as well as to what is appropriate content for ABC meetings and even for the scope proposals, right? That getting reviewing section level transmutations is not really something that I want to do. And also we have this 1 hour, and maybe it's too soon to use this meeting to attract new people, where I think things need to be a little bit more accessible or interesting. Not the transmuting, scope immutable, blah blah blah. Not that that's not interesting, um, but also keeping in mind, what AVC work and membership, really needs to look like to scale, and what does it mean to be at a high level, and to be thinking about the policy and the strategy for MakerDAO, and making some of and having some of the conversations like we had last week, where we're thinking also about the ecosystem at large and what impacts we want to have at various levels. So I feel there's a lot of wood to chop around this whole process that won't even touch the details of what's actually in each section. And also that, there's so in terms of even some of the questions that you all have raised in the scope and focus for this week, clearly there are ecosystem actors who are, I say clearly because it's been said, we have some reports of things that are tooling and things that are being built, that the brand is being worked on, etc. And I do not think it's our place as AVC members to try to do that work for them, right? Or to yes, we do not have that level of expertise. And I think the way that the Atlas thinks about the different roles and responsibilities of each of the sort of governance participants very clearly, the way I see it, assigns that level of scrutiny and investigation, to the scope advisors. And we have this challenge where we don't formally the advisory councils, right? We don't have very many of them. We've got one for BA Labs. We've got one that's handling the stability scope. And my sense is that, and of course, other AVC members, have a different take and are doing different things. But that what we need to get right, or what we need to engage in on the strategy side of things, and in the actual focus and labor on the next gen Atlas concepts, is really so much to handle that, I'm very satisfied to let the experts who are working on the details that are reflected in the scopes, go about their work, basically, so that at the AVC level, we're really not informed enough or in a position to spend the hour giving, section article by article commentary. And that in the future, there would be a robust bench of vetted experts to sort of propose that, do that, and that somewhere along the line, the delegates are interfacing heavily with that process. And that maybe like cross-pollinating between AVCs, or being a bridge between the AVC members and meetings, and ecosystem actors, and the impartial advisors who are scrutinizing that work. And then eventually, right, we have the facilitator DAOs that are policing everything. Um, Let me see, Bonopublica, what did you say? It seems the idea is to create as much analysis as possible, and eventually we'll get to a large TB, terabyte of data corresponding to many complex sections of the next gen atlas. Yeah, machine readable framework, right? Ultimately we're embarking on something that's, I find it rather breathtaking and really exciting to witness. I don't know that anyone in crypto, or really conceptually anywhere, will be taking on this kind of challenge where we're basically designing an operating system, right, for a stable coin that can actually scale to serve the world. Um, and first, we believe it's the AI and enhanced generative power that's the breakthrough in overcoming the limitations of the human mind and the human psychology, in the sense that we have a natural limit as to kind of how much information we can digest, how much we can manage. And so I see the next generation atlas and the data structure that we're building as a mechanism that will allow us to, yes, build this repository of information that's machine readable, and then can really just operate in a way that's trustworthy, in a way that's verifiable, in a way that's transparent. And how we actually get there, I think there's tons of questions, and we've got the right group, I think, connected to refi to help us navigate some of those questions. But that the actual work that's happening, yeah, I mean, it's on many levels, right? You all and Mike and Robin, and those who are not anon, please feel free to go ahead and come off mic if you want to chime in on anything. Um, okay, Mike's still typing. So yeah, so is there any process to get any data from Discord into machine readable code? So I think, yeah, I mean, Robin, I think that you had some suggestions about that. But what's happening right now, I mean, the work assignment for the atlas is completely different. It's one really, it's not it's intentionally not dealing with any data that's actually out there in the world. And first and foremost, the exercise is to train the participants who are willing to volunteer and those who are compensated to learn how to structure the data, right? The JSON format, the conventions, the concepts that are going into it, which, so far Rune hasn't really, I mean, at least not that I perceived, actually explained why it's structured the way it's being structured. He sort of like put the JSON out there for us to look at and see this new structure. And then the assignments are, forcing the alignment conservers to actually figure it out, trial by fire. Great, Robin's going to be working on that in the coming weeks. Yeah. And so, my takeaway as far as, like Robin, your chat bot and those sorts of things are really great to get the community used to interacting with AI and just the language of it, the feel of it. Um, but that separately, what has to happen for the next generation atlas is manual to some extent, um, unless, and this is, was also mentioned in the assignment, although not clear who in my mind it's directed to. Uh, how to use AI or maybe some other tools that help with the manual process of transmuting, what's in the MIPS, right, into this new format. So I think that there's some ways that at least the text can be converted. Um, but I think Rune had said that, he has what's been done so far, he has done manually. Maybe by the time a person tries to figure out a tool, you could have had the whole thing done already. But certainly some kinds of tools. And I think I saw something about, was it Blue who created a tool that some folks are using? Right. So yes, right. So there's, quite a bit of work to, like, learn the structure and the translation that's needing to take place between the format and the content that's in the atlas today into something that's, in the new JSON format. But then I think it's also a great opportunity in the exercises, right? Doing the facilitator DAO examples in, what's the language that's used? The element analysis, right? I mean, this is also where we're all learning and debating, right? Like, what are the principles? What is the spirit of the atlas? Where is the line? Balance of powers and, all of that. So, on a substantive level, we want to also really be thinking about what do all of these things mean in context, how are they going to work in operation? Um, and then this is all, totally, again, not necessarily, above and beyond or besides or before what actually happens when the AI consumes the data, right? And then we begin to test that. But right now, I mean, I don't know how far off that is, but right now it's really just like kind of learning it, right? And it's not really creating the actual new content, although it's probably a road to that since folks are doing really good work. Okay, well, let's see. I won't take up the whole hour just for fun. Um, but before we go, let me just also s- see if there's any. I did promise we would kind of go through your reports, but I have to say, it's really kind of throttled by the security breach and the amendments and the work assignment. Ikagi's typing. Will trans move section 3.1. Yeah, so how are people coordinating? Just like fairy dust, like coordinate. Everybody just coordinate. I don't know how many delegates are there? There's a lot. Um okay, so in the last sort of 5-10 minutes, I'm looking at the scope advisories from Cloaky, Bonapublica, Ikagi, and Zero X Defensor. So you bear with me as I just scan these. Right, rewards, the rewards parameter, the earning, and the communication channels. Yeah, there's just yes, there's so much, and I actually haven't had a chance to reach out to Zero X Defense or your comment. Uh, the team that's working on the front ends. And see, they're not even actually working on the front ends as much as they're kind of working on a tech stack that the front ends, whoever the front end companies can use. Okay, so Cloaky. you've written, I indicated in the thread the section that I would transmute, and Vote Wizard did the same. Yes, our current coordination system could be improved. Yeah. I mean, but that's a good way of as doing it as any, right? Just going ahead and putting your work product out there or your intention, and then whoever's hasn't done so just kind of has to pick what's next. Um, it would be great. I mean, I think one of the things, these powerhouse tools, or just some more communication as to what other kind of governance support we can expect, and when that will facilitate these kinds of communications. And I think also, right, we're stabbing in the dark. Let's see. Was it you, Bona Publica? I mean, you also rewards, automated systems. Bona Publica, you also talked about the reward system. Yeah, I'll confess to feeling overwhelmed, discombobulated. I thought I was prepared for this call, and I'm suddenly feeling that I'm not really. Um, but I think we checked the box, hopefully. Accessibility scope. It's not accessible. It needs to be more accessible. Launch project, what's going on? We don't know. Um, so I definitely think, I mean, in terms of the weekly reports, and again, we're pausing them for this week. We want to think about how to reformat them so it's not, you know, it's really meaningful in terms of supporting the AVC. That it's not like redundant with now what's happening with the next gen atlas. But one of the things that would be helpful to get a better idea of is not so much what are the questions about what we don't know, but maybe like the opposite, which is, well, okay, what do we know? Because there's like so much we don't know. Maybe a better focus for the scopes per week is like, okay, here's what we know. Here's where we are. Here's the latest thing that we've heard about this part, that part, that part. Here's the last time that, this was mentioned. I'm just spitballing here, but nah, I'm just off the cuff. Ask you all to think about that, because that could be very helpful as well. Just to know where we are in this vast overlapping timelines to the extent possible. Just so that we also, as ABC members, are not missing crucial updates that are hitting the forum. So, Ikagi, what do you mean, diversity and inclusion of the brand? Yeah, look, I don't think there's going to be, you all tell me if you have a different view. I don't think there's going to be a lot of feedback from anyone about the brand. It's going to be basically done, and we get to vote on it. Or ADs, all MKR holders and delegates can say yes or no. Am I right? Do I have that right? Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of technical things going on, I think. I mean, these gets into some of the other scopes, but it doesn't inspire. I'll tell you, it doesn't inspire confidence that community members have to ask Monetellus, hey, should we be getting some money back from Coinbase custody? You know, that's the monitoring, the kind of proactive operating things. Yeah, I mean, if the delegates are going to, and the facilitators, I mean, I don't even, the delegates I can see definitely, I mean, in my mind, feels like you have clearly capacity to like dig into this. And as Koki said, I imagine it must be, nice to have something very concrete that you can work on. Facilitators, you have plenty. You've got plenty already that you're doing on a day-to-day basis. So I'm sure this is challenging, but it's good. Yeah, we'll it's necessary. So okay, I will stop breathing in your ear. Any final words? Any final thoughts? As always, let us know how you think the ABC can support your work as ADs, and just in general, what the community is doing, even if our response is not sure if we want to do that. Like, so still keep your perspective flowing, because we are at that stage where we're the ones that know the most about the system, and even if something's not specifically in our role, our reflections and opinions matter about all of these interactions and changes. Okay. Well, if there's nothing more, I'll give you back 12 minutes and we will reconvene next week for government scope. And yeah, I think obviously we'll be watching the forum. And I think next week will be another like super informal meeting, so that we're, and kind of not running off in one direction, whereas like the whole governance apparatus is clearly shifting. Yeah, Bona Publica did 5 and 6 of the sports scope already. Okay. All right, good luck on ons. Godspeed. Okay. We'll see you next week. See you on the forum. Take care.